Hello everybody, I'm with Mrs. Sophie here and Mrs. Charlotte, and we are going to do some story time with you guys tonight. And tonight's book of choice is No Jumping on the Bed by Tedd Arnold. '25th Anniversary Edition. In his room near the top floor of the tall apartment building, Walter was getting ready for bed. His father said, "If I told you once, I told you a million times. No jumping on the bed. One day it's going to crash right through the floor. No lie. Now lie down and go to sleep." Walter plopped down on his pillow and squeezed his eyes closed. "Good night," said his father. He turned off the light and pulled the door almost shut. The room was dark and quiet, except for a soft thump, thump, thump coming from the room above. "That's Dilbert upstairs," thought Walter. He switched on his lamp. "If Dilbert can jump on his bed, so can I." Walter jumped higher and higher until his hair brushed the ceiling. When he landed on the mattress, it cracked. The floor cracked, and his whole bed tipped upside down. Through the floor went Walter, bed and all. Walter's bedroom was directly above Miss Hattie's dining room. She was quite surprised to see when Walter landed in her spaghetti and meatballs. "I was not expecting company for dinner," she mumbled, with a mouthful of meatballs. Said Walter. "Spaghetti is my favorite, but didn't have a chance to eat." His bed smashed right through the table and kept right on crashing down through the floor. Down and down Walter fell. Miss Hattie, the spaghetti, the bed, and all. Mr. Matty didn't even notice a bed coming through his ceiling until a meatball bounced off his head. Miss Hattie had landed in his lap and Walter splashed into his aquarium. "I already had one bath tonight," said Walter. He wanted to watch the monsters on TV, but his bed crunched through the floor and took the TV with it. Down and down fell Walter. Mrs. Hattie, Mr. Hattie, the TV, the spaghetti, the bed, and all. Walter's Aunt Betty had just moved in. She was still unpacking when Miss Hattie, Mr. Hattie, and a dripping wet Walter tumbled through the ceiling right onto the box with her stamp collection. No, guys, look at that. Look at that. Walter bursted through the bottom of the box and down through the floor. Aunt Betty soon followed. Down and down fell Walter. Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, Aunt Betty, and the stamps, and the TV, and the spaghetti, and the bed, and all. Patty and Natty had worked for days building a house of blocks. Afraid that Fatty Cat might knock it over, they shooed her out. Then the upstairs neighbors came through the ceiling. "Excuse us," said Walter. "We won't be staying long," and his bed crashed through the floor. Down and down fell Walter. Miss Hattie, Mr. Hattie, Aunt Betty, Patty, Natty, Fatty Cat, the blocks, the stamps, the TV, the spaghetti, the bed, and all. The last thing Mr. Hattie expected to see was the bed coming through his studio ceiling, followed by nearly everyone in the building. "If I knew you all wanted to see my paintings," he said, "I would have tidied up a bit." Then his floor caved in and everyone followed Walter's bed down through the hole. Down and down Walter fell. Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, Aunt Batty, Patty, Natty, Fatty Cat, and Mr. Hanratty. Cans of paint and blocks, the stamps, the TV, the spaghetti, the bed and all. Mr. Faraletti and his string quartet were astonished by all the colorful crowd that dropped in unannounced. "I love an audience," he said. But when the paint splattered everywhere, the maestro's wishes, this audience would leave, and they did, taking the string quartet with them. The maestro's floor was also the basement ceiling. It was dark as midnight down there. Walter squeezed his eyes and closed and fell through the darkness until he landed on something soft. He opened his eyes. Everything was in its place, and outside the door his mother and father were talking quietly. "Phew, no more jumping on the bed for me," said Walter, as he lay back down to sleep. Suddenly he heard a creak. The ceiling cracked down, and Dilbert's bed and all. Down, down fell Dilbert. The end. This is one of our library pickups today with Miss Charlotte. And next time Miss Sophie will get to come with us, unless our new arrival comes, because I take turns with the babies on outings. We hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll come again with another book, because I have a few more that I had picked up. Thank you. Have a good night.